Barbara Heller has an autoimmune disease called PBC. She takes the generic drug Ursodiol to prevent liver damage.
The last refill that I got for Ursodiol cost $94.50 for 3 months.
In August, she called for her usual 3-month renewal, expecting her cost would still be under $100.
Your price for this drug is $1,212.30.
I was upset. I didn't know what to do. I need Ursodiol every day, probably for the rest of my life.
People like Barbara Heller are being put into tough situations where they can barely afford the medication that they need to live due to their prices skyrocketing to absurd amounts. You are about to see a clip explaining the correlation between the number of companies producing generic drugs and the price of these drugs that are being produced.
A recent analysis found nearly 10% of generics more than doubled in price in the past year. Today's article points to the impact of less competition in the generic drug industry. For example, over the last decade, the number of companies making the heart drug digoxin fell from 8 to 3, and the drug price went up by 637%.
This next clip is of Senator Bob Menendez questioning the top pharmaceutical companies over their high prices despite financial breaks from the U.S. government.
Let me ask you, many corporations, not just pharmaceutical ones, received a huge windfall from the Trump tax bill. Your company spent well over $40 billion buying back your own stock in the past year. Going down the road, can you just give me the ballpark number? Did any of you use your tax breaks to lower the costs of any of your prescription drugs?
The various companies provide multiple different responses, ranging from flat-out no to defending their prices due to the large amount of money, even after their tax break, that goes into researching and developing new drugs. The companies have a fair argument, considering that they are providing a service and are still a company that needs to be profitable. However, the general consensus behind this bipartisan movement is that somewhere a line needs to be drawn so that being able to afford medication is not a life or death situation. It may be easy to reason with Big Pharma and believe their reasons behind their high and increasing drug prices, but in this next clip, some insight is provided on why you should actually doubt these companies.
This paper is about the rising cost of cancer drugs in the United States. The average price of new cancer drugs in the US is more than $100,000 a year. In 2000, this was only $5,000 to $10,000 a year. This high cost of cancer drugs and the continuing increase in cost places a huge financial burden on individual patients as well as the US society as a whole. More importantly, cancer drug costs in the United States are 50 to 100% more than other countries, including other developed countries, even though many of these drugs were developed by tax-funded resources. Pharmaceutical companies usually come up with 4 arguments as to why cancer drugs cost so much. And in this paper, we go through these 4 reasons and we address these 4 myths. First, they say that the cost of developing a cancer drug is enormous, $1 billion for each new drug, and that high price of research has to be reimbursed by the cost of the cancer drug. We show in this paper how that is not true. The second.
This last clip is the last and most important reason that the prices of medication need to be combated. The people are what matter most, and this ongoing battle has left many who rely on vital medications to die only because they could not afford to live.
Whether it's about EpiPen, insulin, or other prescriptions, in the thousands of letters that I've received, Iowans have made clear that high drug prices are hurting.